Bloodshot is a 2020 American superhero film based on the Valiant Comics character of the same name. Directed by David Wilson from a screenplay by Jeff Wadlow and Eric Heiserberg. The film follows a Marine who was killed in action only to be brought back to life with superpowers by an organization that wants to use him as a weapon. When this film was announced, I really didn't have much of a reaction to it. Personally, I'm more of a Marvel DC guy, so I really didn't know much about Valiant. When the trailers came out, I immediately got Universal Soldier vibes. So going into this film, I really didn't know what to expect. As I was watching it, my instincts were on point with what I saw in the trailer. The film does feel very much like Universal Soldier, but it also comes across very much like RoboCop. So the plot itself is a melding of Universal Soldier and RoboCop, but it also has elements of films like Terminator and Total Recall. So it's very much kind of a modern throwback of sci-fi action films. It plays more like a sci-fi action film as opposed to a conventional superhero film. From the tropes, the look, the feel, the attitude is more in line with a sci-fi action film versus a superhero film. While the film's plot is hardly original and feels like a combination of Universal Soldier and RoboCop and plenty of classic sci-fi action films, the visuals and the action sequences are worth the price of admission still. Even if the plot itself is hardly noteworthy and feels very much throwbackish. How this film showcases Ray Garrison's nanites on screen, I felt was quite impressive. Although I will say, even though the film is PG-13, I felt that an R rating really could have taken the visuals and the action sequences up quite a few notches, knowing the source material. That being said, the visuals and the action sequences were still very impressive, especially not just towards Vin Diesel's character, but the supporting cast as well. Each of the characters, KT, Tibbs, Jimmy Dalton, and even Guy Pearce's character, Dr. Harding, also have their specific moments to shine, and the action sequences actually really showcase some really cool visuals. While I really enjoyed this film, the first act feels very overstuffed and it bogs the film down. It makes the film feel longer than its actual runtime. And the film actually could have benefited from a longer runtime, although the film should have smartly spread out everything that it was trying to do throughout the course of its film, instead of doing so much of the heavy lifting in the first act. And that's where a lot of the film's problems reside, is that so much of the heavy lifting in terms of developing characters and plot points and so many things that in the film is done so much in the first act that it is like information overload. And the supporting cast, while very solid, I felt the character of Tibbs was underutilized. But beyond that, my issues was mainly in regards to how I felt the film could have been greatly benefited with a longer runtime, and things that they did in the first act by just cramming so much development and setup in the first act. It should have been laid out throughout the entire film, not just crammed into the first act for the majority of the entire film. While the film could have greatly benefited from a longer runtime, a not so overstuffed first act, which would have allowed for a balanced story and a much more unique plot, the film nonetheless is a very solid sci-fi action film. If you've watched films like RoboCop and Universal Soldier and Terminator, or any sci-fi action film in general, and you're a fan of the genre, this film is right up your alley. If you're a fan of sci-fi action films and comic book films in general, it's worth checking out. Hey everyone, if you like this review, hit the like and subscribe button and please comment down below.